So we want to thank the New York City Open Data Week for hosting us, and give a shout out to Manhattan Borough President and Champion of Data, Gail Brewer, who connected us to them. So we are thrilled to be here. Our main focus today will be the American Community Survey and data.census.gov. We will also update you about the upcoming data summits, which hopefully you'll be excited about too. And we will do a tremendous live demo of data.census.gov. So that's sort of the order of events. David is driving the slides, and I'll talk for a few minutes and then hand it over to him. In terms of our registration list for this session, and we're thrilled that we've just crossed 100 people joining us, which is awesome. We know that you may not be from the New York City area. The data that we are focused on sharing in this session may be from New York City, will be from New York City neighborhoods for the most part, but we encourage you, these tools are universal for the entire country, and you will be able to go. We encourage you to, to look along with us. When we're looking at a census narrative profile, feel free to bring that up and search your own zip code and see what's there. So there is so much to share, and we hope that by the end of this presentation, you leave with some takeaways that will enable you to better use our tools, both for yourself and for the community. Okay, so here we go. So a little bit of overview in terms of the work that we do at the Census Bureau. There are 3 censuses. There's the decennial census, that's our once every 10 years, big shebang. You guys hopefully were a part of it, filled out the census for your household. Thank you for helping us count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. We counted 140 million households individually. The economic census measures the nation's economy every 5 years, and the census of governments measures state and local governments. So the economic and census of governments we do every 5 years, ending in 2 and 7. So next year, it's coming up. Economic and census of governments are coming your way. But the Census Bureau not only does those censuses, we also do over 130 surveys and programs. Some of our work is done for the Bureau, and a great deal of our work is done for other government agencies. So to give an easy example, we do the American Housing Survey for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or also known as HUD. So within those surveys and programs that keep us busy all the time, not just every 10 years, is the American Community Survey. And that's what we will dive into today. That is a random sampling of 3.5 million people annually. It is a moving picture of our nation and shows what the population looks like and how it lives. We encourage people to complete to complete all of our surveys, but the American Community Survey is one where we really need a complete sampling of the population across socioeconomic levels and also in different geographies. Our demographic surveys measure income, poverty, education, and many other subjects, and economic surveys cover sectors of the nation's economy and supplement the economic census. We also have a population estimates program. So yes, we do the decennial census, but then we also adjust we also release population estimates annually based upon births, deaths, and migration. So being part of New York City Open Data Week, I think we have a group of people on the line who are interested in data. One thing I want to mention is that the data that we provide from the Census Bureau is all free. There are people who will happily repackage and sell you our data, but I can help you get there, and David certainly can help you get there to find the data sets that you may be looking for free. And next slide. In terms of how the data helps us, it helps us by informing planning for our government, for healthcare, for businesses, roads, for your entire community. That's a big message that we delivered in terms of shaping your future in the 2020 census. But I can tell you that when you think about the COVID-19 vaccine and making sure it's distributed to areas where people are 65 and over, where people are more vulnerable, it is census data that people are looking at. So we finished data collection for the 2020 census on October 15th. That's when we took in, that's when we closed down our website and we didn't take in any more entries publicly. In terms of the release of that data, our current schedule points to April 30th, 2021, in not too long, where we will release apportionment counts to the president. Those are counts of the population state by state. We will release redistricting data to all states by September 30th, 2021. That data will allow for the redrawing of district lines and legislative boundaries based on population changes. But with the apportionment counts, those counts will determine how many representatives we will have in each state for the future, for the next 10 years. So it's really important and it's coming your way. And if you want to know more about apportionment, you can watch this little video we have called The Amazing Apportionment Machine. I'll put a link to it in the chat. It's super cool. And in 2 minutes, you'll know all about apportionment. Data summits are being planned for April through July of 2021. David, if you, next slide. And here, what you can see is a list of the sessions that'll be covered in the data summits. These are public sessions, anyone can attend. They will be large broadcasts. They'll be led by experts from our headquarters. So for those of you who are very interested in data, whether it's housing data for grant writers or Census Bureau data for economic development professionals, and there will be a whole list. Like I know there's one that's going to be focused on older adults and people with disabilities. So there's more coming your way. This is just a sampling of the work in progress, and they will also be recorded. So if you miss it, you can always catch it. There is not a website yet for the Data Summit info, but trust me, it is coming, and we will be able to share that link with you to register. In addition, before I go on to more American Community Survey, there will be 3 other sessions this week that focus on census data. So we encourage you to attend those. They are led by the Opportunity Project and our wonderful Census Open Innovation Labs. And there's one focused on COVID-19 data. I'll show you those. I have those in this slide deck, which I will send a PDF of the slide deck out to everyone who registered for the session. So here in the graphic that you see here, this is what we call a data wheel for the American Community Survey. It highlights national data and also a subset of New York State data. So you can go to this link on the bottom and plug in for any geography, and what will come up is this data wheel. I think it's interesting to see here in New York. All right, it's a little hazy, but you can see that over 22% of the population is foreign-born, as compared to 13.7% in the overall United States, and that we do a bit better in terms of making sure people have health insurance, as 5.2% of the population is without it, as compared to 9.2% nationally. But American Community Survey is used widely in terms of people applying for grants for their communities. Emergency planners use it, and businesses use it to see where to start or grow their businesses. Next slide. So I mentioned some of this already. It's important to know that we sample every county, and that they're random samplings. And I'll let David talk more. Next slide. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, David Kraiker.
Yeah, thanks, Joli. So I'm going to say those data wheels you showed before, I have thousands of those in my home that were sent to me. So if anybody needs some, I can always send them out to you. They're paper. They're good for classrooms and things like that. So I just want to go over some of the data that you can find in the American Community Survey, and I will show that to you in a little while. But these are sort of the ways that we break it out here. So notice that we have social data, and we have demographic, which is sort of what you think about when you think about the 10-year census. And then we have economics. And then over here, we also have housing. And that's kind of an interesting concept because 72 questions, but I believe it's 24 questions are about the housing unit itself when we go out there. So sometimes even if people aren't living in a household or in a housing unit, we still go to the town hall or the village hall or whoever owns it, and we figure out all this information, and that information is released with the ACS data as well. So let me just move on here. And by the way, this information is in what we call a data profile table, and I will show you today how to get that. But we do need to think about thresholds a little bit. And so when we are looking at data, searching for data here, we have to think about these populations. So 4,000, 65,000, actually 100,000. So what happens is anything under 4,000 people in an area, the data becomes weaker and weaker. And so you have what we call margins of error. And so I know that people do often say to look for data at a block group level, but I kind of steer people away from that. Block groups don't have large populations, and therefore they have a lot of data dropout in them. That said, if you were to look for a census tract, census tracts on average have about 4,000 people in them around the country, and they will always have data in them that you can find. It is what we call 5-year data. It means that the data is released every year in December, but it is a compendium or an average of data collected over 5 years. And so you need to be aware of that. So if you're using data from year to year to year, every December, release, that you have overlap in the collection of the data. But it's the only way we can do it without knocking on everybody's door. If you have an area over 65,000 people, you now can get data every year. Every year in September, and it's 1-year data. So the data was only collected over 1 year. And so you can kind of see how things are changing by year to year to year, okay? So that works, if you're looking at a county like in New York City, or congressional district, or large cities, that sort of thing. However, we also have this thing up here, PUMA. PUMAs are released, it means public use microdata area. They are for areas over 100,000 people, and that data is released every year. It's 1-year data, and it's released in September. Let me just move on a little bit here. Okay. And I will explain the PUMA just a little bit, but let's look over here. This is what we call a geographic hierarchy. This is sort of how we classify the geographies and how we're going to release the data. There is sort of a behind the scenes organization that we use. The smallest data that you can get for ACS is actually a block group. It's down here. But I do tend to push people towards census tract. That's where you can get much more reliable data. And I know we do talk about census blocks before. Joli mentioned those. Those are used actually when people do redistricting and reapportionment in congressional districts, state legislature. They can go down to a block level and cobble things together to get their district. But anyway, these are sort of how we can find the data. But let's just look at this. If, for example, you were looking for data for a congressional district, when you go into our portal, you're actually going to come down here and you're going to look for the state and then the congressional district within the state. Or, for example, if you were looking for a census tract, you have to kind of go from the nation down to the state and then the county and then the census tract. So this is kind of like a little map of how you're going to get to the piece of data that you need when you're looking in our data portal. Okay, and then this I threw in here. This is very useful for people doing data searches or data dives in New York City, okay? So, if you're looking for data for New York City, I do recommend that you can use a census tract, and I will show you how to look for that today. But I also recommend the public use microdata area, PUMA. And when we say microdata, it means that there is more data in there, and that is true. It's an area over 100,000 people, but the geographic area is larger, and the geographic area has to have more than 100,000 people. So a PUMA actually nests within the state. And lucky for us, the city of New York population division over the years has sort of fashioned those PUMAs so they coincide with most community boards or community districts. And so you can see this map that they've put out here, and we have Community District 4 and Community District 5, and it sort of shows how it's been orchestrated. We used to number our PUMAs, but now they actually have names, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to find it in our database when you're looking for that. So we'll keep that in mind when we're looking for data today. Just a little ad here for something we do at the Census Bureau. We have this thing called Census.gov Academy, and you can go here and you can sign up for alerts. And we have what we call webinars, national webinars. If you ever get on one of those, you can't really sign up for them ahead of time. You just have to remember to go in that day and sign into them. We also have data gems, which are little YouTube videos. I'm in a few of those, and it's really there to show people little vignettes of how to get data or use data or to understand a concept, and nothing is more than about 5 minutes long. So it's a kind of a good thing. So Census Academy is a website you can go to, just census.gov/academy, and it gives you a little bit of information there. And then we also have the ACS resources page, and you can go there. ACS actually has its own page, and they have a lot of information there. They have handbooks. We used to print these handbooks, and every once in a while we do, but lately we have been just putting them up as PDF. Sorry. Another resource, I just want to mention this, is New York City actually has, and you might find that you need to go here. It's called the New York City Population Fact Finder. You can just put that into Google and you can get here. And they have figured out a way to take some of the Census Bureau geographies and put them together and call them neighborhood tabulation areas. And they have other things in here that you can use to put layers on and figure out where your census tract is or what kind of data you need. They're always a year behind us, though, so you may find that the data is a little bit older, but it is another resource for you to use. It also has sort of this cool radius tool in there. So if you had one address and you needed to draw a radius around it and figure out, what's within your area, you could go that route as well. So I do recommend that as another resource. Let me okay, and then today I will show you how to look at narrative profiles, and that's sort of a way. This is it. It's on the American Community Survey website, and you can go there and you can actually, this is, for people who majored in English or just want something written out, you can go there and you can look for things in certain ways, and it will just print out a long narrative with all your numbers, but it's in a different way, a different digestible stream for you to take in. So just keep that in mind. And I will show you data.census.gov. This is actually the website here. It looks very easy when you get there, but I always like to say the secret is beginning at advanced search, okay? And when we begin at advanced search, it's going to open this and we can start filtering out things that we want. And that's kind of a neat way to begin. Let's see, can you still see, am I backing up? Can you see things?
Yep, now you can go forward.
Okay, okay, so we're good. We saw this, ACS has a page. I just really did want to show Joli, this is the New York City page, New York City Population Fact Finder, okay? Can you see this, narrative profile?
Yep.
Okay, and then this is it. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Data.census.gov. This is what it looks like when you open it up. And I just like to say, start at advanced search. It will make your life easier. And then we're going to get down here and I will give it back to you, Joli.
Okay, so we are not going to dive deeply into COVID-19 resources, but I did want to show you where they are and some of what's available. Next slide, David. This is the COVID-19.census.gov landing page of the COVID-19 Data Hub. So this is available through census.gov. Many of these statistics may be pulled from surveys that we have that are ongoing surveys, but you can also dive into what we call our pulse surveys. So for example, this is the household pulse survey. And what I just want to highlight, you can't see my cursor. What I just want to highlight is on the left-hand side, you can see that what this is experience loss in employment income. And you can see it across the states. And drill down into the statistics below in the table. But the really nice thing about the pulse survey is on the left-hand side, there's a whole menu of options. So you can look into housing insecurity, food scarcity, a number of economic indicators and population indicators that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Household pulse survey, anything that says pulse survey, those were started actually during the pandemic. It was a way that the Census Bureau pivoted quickly to do surveys of smaller subsets of the population. So they are not as in-depth in nearly any way as something like the American Community Survey, but they're designed to give you a pulse on the community. So for this slide, I looked at the business formation statistics, and there are a whole bunch of different tables you can access on the COVID-19 Data Hub. We'll see how things are going later, and maybe we'll, after we dive deep into American Community Survey, we'll see if we can take you here. But I looked at week 14 in 2020, which corresponds to April, and you can see how the number of businesses formed during that week it's all red. It all took a nosedive south. If you looked at it today, you would see that those bubbles are all different shades of green, where many more businesses are being formed. So this is some of our COVID-19 data. Right now, when you look at American Community Survey and when you look at those, for example, those census narrative profiles, what you are seeing is the 2019 data. So you won't see the great impact that, for example, when you look at the transportation statistics, it shows, 60% of people commuting to work in certain areas by car and 20% by walking, et cetera. Clearly, with a move to many people doing telework, those statistics will look different in when the 2020-2021 data is released, but it's just something good to know. So just highlighting these sessions in terms of COVID-19, this is a segue into the sessions that are available, other sessions from the Census Bureau, including putting open data to work for COVID-19 economic recovery, which is happening on Thursday from 2 to 3:30. So I will share this out, but these are other sessions you could consider attending. And now we'll move into our live demonstration. Over to you, David.
So we do have this thing called, you can go to census.gov /ACS, and I'm going to show you how to get to the narrative profiles. And so Joli taught me today that I don't have to go this way. You could actually just go, what'd you say, Joli, into?
Yeah, I have to say, I do it the way I see my kids do it. And the way I just search census narrative profile in Google, and it comes right up. It's like the first response.
Okay, good.
But here's really David showing you the whole smorgasbord here.
Yeah, that's right. So census.gov /ACS, and it will bring you to this page. There's a lot of information here about the ACS. If you wanted to look at the form or whatever, the history or what the questions have been over each year, sometimes they change. But really, we want to go over here to the left to data, and we will bring that up. And we have a couple of different things here. We have data profiles and subject tables, but really today we will look at just really quickly the narrative profiles. And this is, like I said, you can use the other side of your brain. Not everything is here. You can get things by zip code. You can get by county, by place. If you went looking for a place, by the way, in New York or New Jersey, New York, it would be, for example, New York City is one place. It's just the city of New York. So that might not give you exactly what you're looking for. But you could certainly go by zip code, or you could go by census tract. And I think, Joli, you gave me a zip code. I'm going to just use that to show what happens. So I will come here to New York. Okay.
Once again, if you're in Wisconsin and you want to search this zip code in Wisconsin, go right ahead. So let's see where we wind up here.
11368, I'm going to look at. And we'll see what happens. And we say get narrative. And it starts to churn away a little bit, and it comes up, and here it comes, just like magically appearing. It's thinking, and it's bringing up all sorts of data from ACS, and it doesn't bring up the data, Joli, I noticed, the way, you would think it would give you the population first, but it doesn't. It gives you things in a different sort of, it's the other side of the brain, right? And it's giving you things like this, and you can print it out, but it gives you some graphs here as I go through. And it took me, we talked about this earlier today.
Right, so let's stop like up a little. If we go back, you can see that this is Corona. This happens to be from a zip code for Corona in Queens. I was speaking with Queens Community Board 4 last week, and we were looking at how incredibly diverse this community is. And I know that we required a lot of Spanish speaking assistance. And when I look at this table and I see that 39.77% of the people living were US natives. And that means that there's a large foreign-born population in this area, and it drills down and shows you this nice chart where you can see that 81.2% of the foreign-born population is of Latin American descent, which means a lot of Spanish-speaking people in this neighborhood. If you scroll, for those of you who may be applying for grants, these tables are really nice because you can also view the data in table format, and you could take a snapshot of any of these tables and just drop it right into a grant application. So that's a really nice use of this data. In addition to sort of, it's a nice way to tell a story with the data, to give you a good overview. What we will do next is David will take you where you can actually dive in and really get your hands dirty in terms of manipulating individual tables and searching in different ways. But if you were a neophyte, a newbie to census data, and you said, I just want to get a look and a feel for what this community is like, using the narrative profile is something that is very easy and welcoming.
Okay, well, Joli, I'm going to scroll really fast down to the bottom. I just want to show people how big this is. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that they've put in here. Somewhere in here, there is actually population.
Oh, there's the population. You just passed the population. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of like the way that I can kind of go like this and it tells me different things, but that's kind of a cool thing, and it goes on and on and on, right, until you get down there. And I think you can print this page. I think it prints out pretty easily too, so I don't quote me on that. So but anyway, that is the narrative profile, and it's just, using the other side of your brain. And I'm not, so I guess I'll do what you said, Joli. I will get my hands dirty. I don't know if I like that expression, but here we go. So you can see data.census.gov, right? You can see where it says explore census data. And any questions before I go into this? And maybe
David, I'm looking through the chat, and let's get people into advanced search, and I think that will start helping answer some questions.
Okay. All right. So we'll go into advanced search here. I just clicked on it, right? And the first thing I like to tell people to do is please select your year. Okay. And when you go looking over here, we're always about 2 years behind in the data. So we know right now 2021 hasn't been here. 2022, I don't know why that's there. In 2020, it's not here yet. So 2019, right, is really what we have data for. So here we have 2019. And then after that, you have these filters over here, and you can kind of fool around with what you're looking at. You can go looking for your topic first or your geography. But I kind of tell people, or the survey. And so I'm going to look at the survey first. This is when I was showing you that data. Remember, I had like the slide and it had economic and social and that sort of thing. That actually comes from something called a data profile. And I'm going to just take the 5-year data profile. I don't know if I need that, or the 1 year, but here it is right here. It says data profile. Okay. And I click on that. And then once I do that, when you click on a data profile that's 5 years, you can get that data for most things, okay? So you can get it for census tract, and you can actually get some information for the block group. But I will come here, geography, like that, and we will look for census tract. But instead of looking for just one census tract right now, I will look for a lot of census tracts, okay? So what we can do is come over here to New York. So we're sort of whittling it down. And we know that we're in New York County. So you can't call it Manhattan, you have to call it New York County. There it is. And we can select a few tracts if we want to, or we can select all the tracts, okay? Sometimes when you get a very large county like Kings County or Brooklyn, you might have some trouble downloading all the tracts. But let's just see what happens. We can come here to search down on the right. And so it is actually showing me that there is information, okay? And what it is doing is showing me that these 4 tables are available. Because remember, I said that I wanted a DP table, data profile table, and I wanted 2019 data. So just click here where it says view all tables. And so what this is, I call this is we're browsing, okay? So we're window shopping right now. We're not really sure if this is really what we want, but we can sort of come over and we can scroll to the right here and we can look at this. I call it a pre-table. So we're kind of looking at the table, looking to see if this is really what we want. And over here on the left, this is a DP table, and it's the demographic and housing estimates, DP5. But if you click on something like social characteristics, that's a DPO2, you'll start to see things that you never may have thought that we had information about. Okay, and a DP table is kind of like the Walmart of tables, or it's the Target of tables. It has a little bit about everything in there, but it doesn't get into anything too deeply. But if you look over here in the table, anything that's in capital letters means that somewhere else in where we house things, right, where we have our data, there will be more tables that go deeper into this subject. Okay, they may not go into it very much here, but they will in other places. So relationship, marital status, fertility, grandparents, school enrollment, that's a popular item, educational attainment, veteran status, disabilities. We have a lot of information on disabilities, residence a year ago, place of birth, US citizenship status, year of entry, world region they're from, language spoken at home, ancestry, here it's a lot of that. And then down here, a little bit of information in this table about computers if we wanted to look at that. So that is kind of what happens when you start to open this and you go browsing and you sort of semi-whittled it down. But let's just say this is the table we want. We can say customize table right here. And it opens the table a little bit further and you can start fooling around with the table. So notice we get an estimate. We also get a percentage. So DP tables are the only one of the few tables that give percentages. But let's say we don't want the margin of error. So that's, notice it's here behind every number. We can turn this off right here, and it sort of collapses our table a little bit. We can actually come up here to the top where there's a URL. We can click on that. We can right click. We can copy that URL and we can paste it into something, and it will memorize this table. And so if we come back the next day or a week later and we click on that URL that we copied and pasted, it will open this table for us, okay? A couple of things here. You can download the table if this is what you want. I'll just click on that to show you. You can bring it in like this, right, into a CSV, but I won't do that. If you come to Excel, if you download it, you will get everything that you saw in the table originally. If you click on the Excel download, it will download however you have programmed the table here. So notice I already programmed it. I don't want the margins of error. Over here on the right, you can come to the columns. You can open that. You can turn off things and turn on things that you don't want to see. And then you can actually download in Excel, and that's exactly what you'll get. Okay, so it's a way for you to do the work on the front end before you download it into Excel. If you ever want to go back, there's a couple ways to go back. You can come up here to tables and click on that. If you click on the logo up here, it will take you all the way back to square one, clear out everything, and you have to start over. But I kind of like to back out of things sometimes. So I click on the table, and then I'm here again, back here in my window shopping. And then I say, okay, maybe this isn't what I want. And I go back to filter. And I can kind of clean up things. So if there are certain things here that I want or I don't want, I can add or I can take them away. So for example, we have 5-year data. Maybe I don't want 5-year data anymore. Maybe I don't want all census tracts anymore. And I turn that off if I can. Oh, it's churning. Okay, and now we have 2019. So it only knows that I want 2019 data now, right? And look at up here in the upper left, 1545. There are 1545 tables, okay, because I barely whittled this down to anything. So I can come back here to geographies, and I do want to show you how to get data for the Pumas, right? And so we're going to come down here.
David,
yeah,
it's Joli. On the tables that you were showing for one of the census tracts, I'm not sure where it was located. It might not have been like
it had nothing in it.
It had nothing in it. Can you explain like what happens when you come upon something with all zeros?
Yes. So often when you take all the census tracts in a county, there will be a few in the beginning or somewhere in there that have all zeros. And often those are census tracts that we create out in the water. And so, for example, that one for Manhattan covered Liberty Island, Statue of Liberty and Governor's Island. And we do have some census tracts like that. We are required to do that, to cover areas sometimes where there is nobody living there. We have that in case in the future somebody starts to live there. Then they're already assigned a census tract. So you do see that every once in a while. Don't let it bother you too much. Just go on with the whole thing, and you'll see that it kind of works out for you. Does that answer? I think that answers the question. So I went looking for public use microdata area. Here it is, Puma, right? And we have to whittle it down by state. And then once this happens, it's kind of a funny thing. We get everything for the state, right? And we have a couple of different ways we could select what we wanted to. We could sort of scroll through here and click on them, or we could draw a map and we could select from the map. So I'm actually going to come up here to this little magnifier glass, and I will put an NYC hyphen. And this is like, nobody knows this little trick, but you can put an NYC hyphen, and it starts to give you all the Pumas that are part of New York City. And in this case, I'm going to put in Manhattan. And so here they are, okay? And I can come down here and I can start checking them off. I want that one. I want that one. Okay, it's thinking, right? Keep coming down, and I say these are, I think there are 7 in Manhattan. And we have a few Pumas that combine a few community districts for whatever reason. It sort of went back up.
This is right. That's an important thing to mention, because we've had some people who, especially working with individual community boards. So for example, community board 4 and 5 in Manhattan are combined because they have less than 100,000 people in each of them, or else they would have been able to be separated. So community boards 1 and 2 in Manhattan are also combined. Community board 4 in Queens had 58,000 people in it, and so the data was distinct. And David will show you how you can see when you select the Puma what the how the map, you can see that the map is a very nice sized neighborhood in terms of selection. And the nice thing about the way that they're described in the search and in the listing is that you can see that they're so you could search for Flushing, or you could search for Upper East Side, and it will come up.
And I did click on this little map button over there to make sure that I got everything, Joli. Sometimes I'm dubious. Did I really get it? How many Pumas are in Manhattan? So it looks like we missed a few. If you miss a few, you can come over here to this little select tool, and you can click there, and you can say select, add that, and select, and add that. And so we've added those together, okay, added them all into Manhattan. And so let's just fool around with this. And if you don't want it to be select, you click again, and you get this little hand, and you pan around. Oh, here we have one up here, select, and I click on that. I say select, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to select one in the Bronx, okay? I don't have to, this is the great thing about this select tool. You can kind of go around and select what you want. So I've added an extra Puma in there. It's Riverdale area, I think, of the Bronx. So that is there. And then let me go to the table, if it will, up here to the upper left. Go back to the table. And if you don't select your topic for the table, the portal will do it for you. It's kind of like Google. It figures, well, most people just want age and sex or population. So we're going to put that up there, and we select it for you. But if you want to select something on your own, you can certainly just come here to filter, the word filter on the upper left, and you can search for something. So I know, Joli, you gave me a few things, but I'm going to go the same way I went this afternoon, because you can certainly go here to topics, and you can go looking for things here, or you can also use this little spyglass here and just put in a word. And I'm going to put in the word language. And here we have language spoken at home. So when we do that, over here we get 42 results. And so one thing I like to say is there was a table, and I'm going to go down here. It's called B16001. It was a very popular table. I will click on that one. And in 2015, that table kind of got discontinued for small geographic areas, but it still exists for the Puma. And so what that is, it gets really into the weeds about language. Okay, so if you start to go through this, you're going to see what languages are spoken, the number of people, the number of encounters, I guess, and then Russian and Polish. And this is just one district right here. But as you go down, you're going to get many things that you might not have thought the Census Bureau released data on. So Gujarati, Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Bengali, Nepali, and then we get into things I don't even know those languages, I have to tell you. But we sort of start getting down into the weeds, and you can find out what there is and what's going on. And so it can get very deep into the weeds when you're looking at Puma data. Okay. The other thing you can do is if this is the table you want, right over here on the right, you customize the table. That means you're really just opening the table, you're making it bigger. This is where you can grab that URL or you can download it, whatever you want to do. But you can also pre-analyze a little bit. So you can come over here and you can click on this map button, and you can actually create what we call, cartographers call a choropleth map. And that's filling in an area with color to show you where there's more or less of something. So here we have Riverdale and all of Manhattan. And so what this does, it really defaults right here to the total. But what we can actually do is when you click on that, you can go through and you can actually select something, right? So you can come through and we'll just kind of look to see what's here. Maybe there's, actually, let's look at Chinese if we can find it. Might be further on down, sort of. Sometimes these things are grouped by continent. Maybe I've passed it. Oh, here we go. Okay, Chinese. Okay, so we get the total. People who speak English very well, or we get just the total. So I'll just click on the total, Mandarin Chinese. And so it's letting us know in different community districts what, it's weighing the things that we've selected against each other and letting you know where you have more of an incident than others. And also, by the way, if you just want to be a little bit creative, over here on the left, there is a little bit of a gear, and you can come here and you can change the colors. I do not recommend these palettes at the top. That's for divergent variables, but down here you want something that's like progressive color. So select something like that, and it will change your map a little bit if you want to look at it. And I'm sure that it's like Joli said, if you want to copy and paste, there's nothing here that's copyrighted, so you can use that if you wanted to use it. So this is something you can use yourself if you wanted to. So I will actually go back, and I always like to say if you need to go back over here on the left, you kind of go back to search if you want to do that. Oh, it took me back to the beginning, but so that is sort of a way to go with this. I will just do, I think, one more demonstration. So we'll come back here to years. And like I said, I usually select the year. So I will select 2019. Okay. And I think, Joli, you gave me some topics here to look at. And so one of them was SNAP benefits. Okay. And so I can probably go looking for that, but let me just see if I can find it. Just everybody cross their fingers. Let's see if it's here. SNAP and food stamps. So it is there.
For those of you who may not be for those of you who may not know, SNAP are nutritional benefits, and they're a key measure right now as we're looking at the need to better serve food scarcity in our communities. SNAP benefits also are often, I think they're under income and poverty, as they're a key measure of poverty for people who need supplemental assistance.
So I chose my year, right? I chose SNAP benefits, or that's my topic that I'm looking for, but there might be many tables that are in there. And now I want to go looking for geographies, right? And I'm going to actually look for census tract right here. And we are going to go looking in, let's see if we can do this, New York. And we will go to Brooklyn, which is Kings County. And let's see if I can do this. I could take all census tracts in Brooklyn, but I think you had mentioned there were certain places maybe we could look at. So this is my little workaround here. So I want to do this. I don't know my census tract numbers that I'm looking for, but I'm actually going to just say, just give me census tract number 1, okay? And so this is a way that I can physically go in there and select something, right? So now what I'm going to do is, let's see here, I need to find my map. Oh, here it is down here. Sorry. It's underneath my Zoom controls. Okay. So I went here, search, and it gave me all these things here, but I'm sort of tricking the system. So I'm going to go to map. Whoops, sorry, maps up here at the left. And it will take me, it should take me. It didn't. It takes me to Iowa. Okay. So that's okay. You need to see what goes wrong with this. So you just have to know that New York is to the right of Iowa, okay, to the east of Iowa. And so we're going to go in here. Here's Brooklyn, okay, but notice what it did. It turned on all the census tracts in Brooklyn, okay, and hey, there's no test.
Can you show how up top, I think this is an important part of manipulating the map. If you look where you can select where you can see what the geography is. It's in small print, but it says census tract. If David wanted to drop down and see a different geography from there, this is a really nice way that the map is nimble.
Yeah, that's a good word, nimble. If we want to go to zip code tabulation areas, it gives us the zip code, right? Maybe we'll do that, Jolie. Let's look at some zip codes, right? So yeah. I started out, I wanted census tract. But now I'm saying, no, forget it. I want zip code, right? So I can come here. You had given me an area, South
Let's Brooklyn? Go to South Brooklyn.
Okay, what's South Brooklyn? Is this South Brooklyn here?
South Brooklyn is lower down, 11224, 11235. We're in Coney Island and Brighton Beach there.
Oh, over here, right in here, right? Maybe? Coney Island. Okay, we'll take it. That's all right.
Right.
Okay, and you can actually, you don't even have to select, you can.
Right by the water, David. There you go.
Okay, so I drew that square. I'll even take this one, and it gives me 4 zip codes or 4 zigtas right there, right? And so that's what I want, right? And so I believe we have that. We can go over here.
I agree. Someone is saying that South Brooklyn is a confusing term. So what I was looking for was further out along the water is 11224 and 11235. Is that
near the Verrazano, or is it out here?
No, you're good. Go left.
Go left.
And down.
Okay. Oh, right here.
There you go. Yep.
Okay. That's South Brooklyn.
That's Coney Island and Brighton Beach, and part of I've definitely spent time there.
Okay. Good. Good to know. All right, and so we can go here, over here. I believe I can go back to filter. So I believe I've selected these. Cross your fingers. Okay, and we have, see, it's all up here. SNAP benefits 2019, and these are the census tracts. I don't want. Remember, I selected tract 1 just to get me going. Get rid of it. I don't want that. Right now we've gone to zip code tabulation areas. Right. And here we're still kind of browsing, right? I'm just going to hit search, and it should give me something. Well, let me just select something. Maybe it made a map for me. We just want the table. Let's see if we can do that. It's doing something, talking.
David, while that's tabulating, someone wanted to know a little bit about margin of error. So when the table comes up, can you speak a little bit to margin of error?
Yeah. So here's a table. I got it. Sometimes you got to fool around with this. Don't think it's you if you have trouble getting into something, but just keep fooling around with it. Okay. We still have a long way to go with this. Okay. So margin of error is right here. And that's a plus or minus. And what that means is if you have 27,951, that's what it says right here. And over here it says 440. It means that we believe the number is somewhere between 440 above 27,951 or 440 below. So it's somewhere in between. And I do like to tell people to kind of keep an eye on their margins of error. If you get a margin of error, it will happen if you go down to a block group level and the margin of error is higher than your estimate, you probably don't want to use it. Okay, that's the one thing I can say. The other thing I like to say is some of these tables, like this table here, gives you percentages. Sometimes when you get to something like this, I prefer to use the percentage instead of the exact number. And so that is just what I recommend to people sometimes. So here we have information, right? I'm going to hit customize table. it's food stamps. It's just one of the tables that are available, but the number of households and then all this information, it's sort of broken out over here about food stamps and SNAP benefits, who has a disability, and they're using that, right? So that kind of information is in there. If that is not the table that you wanted, you can certainly go back, and you're going to go up here and just back to see that right there. It says tables. Just go back to that, and you have your other options over here of what you want to select. You can select any of them. They are all from 2019, and they are all for those zip code tabulation areas that we selected. And so, that is something you can do. I know I'm giving you a lot today, and I'm going through it very fast.
So
but I just
I have a few specific questions that have come up. We may not go into some that are let me start with some basic ones. Are base maps reproducible for the public?
Base map to me means the underlying map. But if the map is there that has the color on it, you've created the coloration. Yeah, it is not copyrighted. You can take a screenshot of that and you can put it into your presentation. I would just say that the little, actually, maybe I should just make a map of this so we can talk about that map, and we'll just see what happens.
Speaking of maps, is there a tie between census and geospatial maps?
Yes. Okay. Anyway, if you're going to take this map, I suggest you take the legend with it, and attribute it to maybe this up here that it comes from ACS 5 year or 1 year or whatever it is. So when you download your data, there should be, if you are downloading data, there is a Geo ID in there. We call it a FIPS code, but a Geo ID is what most people like to call it. And that Geo ID should work with any census spatial data that you download. You don't download spatial data here, you download it from the geography section of our census.gov website. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm going to throw this little caveat in there. If let's say you want a zip code tabulation areas, remember I said things nest, so they nest within the whole nation. When you go to download the spatial, I'll call them shapefiles. When you download those, you'll get the whole nation. So when you go looking for data here, let's say you only had 5 or 6 areas that you wanted data for, you're going to have to join those up and pull out everything you don't want. So it is not for the faint of heart. Let's put it that way.
Okay, another question. Is there a way to find data about homeless people for a specific state?
No, as far as I know, no. When we released the data for 2020 census, I believe I'm pretty sure traditionally we put in the data for people in group quarters. Mm-hmm. So people who are homeless are counted in group quarters. That means they're counted during the evening or nighttime in the shelters they were in, that sort of thing. And if they are counted, let's say in a homeless encampment, then they're sort of just populated into that block, and you don't really see where that address is. So for example, last time around, the city of New York came to us and said, well, you've counted, I don't know what it was, 25 people, and they're in Central Park. That can't be right. And we'd say, well, they're homeless people in there, but they don't know where in Central Park. But I mean, that's a good guess. But if it's a regular block where people are living and they got enumerated there, you're not really going to know.
Okay. Is there a way to compare census data from the past to most current data? Or do you just have to search for individual periods of time to export it to see that, David?
So most of the data in here, if we went back to the filter, let me go this way. If we went to the filter and we're using this system here, okay, if I get rid of the year, right, and I come back and I notice the years that are available. So there are not a lot of years in this system yet, so they're sort of populating it little by little. But this is what you can obtain. Actually, let me get rid of some of these things here. It depends on what you're looking for. So zip code tabulations didn't exist a long time ago. So you can go back to 2000 in this portal. But if you're looking for other data, I would recommend that you write to, I think we put the site up there, Joli, is it Ask Data at census.gov or something of that sort. And then they will kind of help you find where that data is. A lot of it, though, if you're going back too far, they're in books, and they're like PDF books, and that we photocopied, and that might be a little bit problematic, but they may go looking for it. The thing that's happening is, like, since 2000 and with things going online, data can be parsed out geographically in a myriad of ways, right? And more data, more and more tables. But when you go further on back, when things were printed, they never really got printed as holistically, we'll say, or as widespread as they are when it's in a portal like this. And so a lot of things are not going to be there. Yeah.
How is there a way to download directly a GIS shapefile? And if that's something that we want to take offline and email directly, like, we can do that. If that's something you want to show, David, I know that's a more technical question, which we're happily taking technical questions. We just, some of it may not be of interest to the broader group.
Yeah, I'm not,
Okay.
We're going to go here, geography. And then over here, I believe it is tiger line shapefiles right here. So we have different ways of disseminating that data, but you have tiger line shapefiles, and then you have cartographic boundary files, which are files that are clipped to the shoreline. They look a little bit better on a map. I'm not really sure that we're putting those out as much as well, there's still some things here. So they are there if you want those. And then the tiger line shapefiles are here. If you need help, you can email me and I can help you with that a little bit more. The thing about that is when you go into this FTP site or the web interface, sometimes you need to know how to read it, so I'll just click on one and we'll see. So here it is over here. You can kind of come here and you can download things if you want to go that route. So that's there as well, the FTP site. I won't go any further, but it is here, okay?
I want to mention to everyone that I know that people are here from a variety of, whether it's classrooms across the country, of government agencies, of nonprofits, of businesses. If you are interested in having a more specific presentation tailored to your organization, please feel free to email us, and that's something that we can see if either of us is, we gladly work with many different entities, and our goal is to make sure that people are aware of this and able to use it. So if you feel that you would like to dive deeper or like to share this with others, please be sure I pasted our contact information. I think we'll paste it again before we leave, and this will be available. Okay, David, I've got a question about the accuracy of survey data. Are you ready? Are the respondents geographically dispersed in a given measurement area? In New York City, we can have a street or blocks or a neighborhood of small residential units along with amount of small apartment buildings. Oops, hold on. Sorry, everyone, I've got to make the chat big to see this question. So I think the question is, the accuracy of our data and our sample, basically focused on our sample sizes.
Okay, so the sample size is actually, you would think it's done, you think maybe it's done geographically, but it's actually done through an address list. And so if you have a block that has a lot of apartment buildings in them, unit 1A, 1B, 1C, something like that, the mechanism is going along and selecting addresses. So it's not saying we want 3 addresses in this block. It's actually going along and just selecting every, whatever it is, 10 address in that list. And so what happens is, if there are more addresses in a block, or more addresses get selected. And so the sample becomes a little bit more robust. I will tell you though, we do know that in certain areas, we have a preponderance of people to not respond, right? So we have different algorithms for around the country, and where we know that people will not respond, we actually oversample. Okay, so if we need 100 responses, we may send out 150 surveys for that area. So we do oversample, and I don't know if I said it before, there are 72 questions in American Community Survey. If they answer most of those questions, we are so happy. We say, we'll take it, okay? But we do like people to answer most of the questions, but we do know that not everybody answers every question. And one little thing, I did say it earlier today, I had another presentation. American Community Survey, we do not really care about people's names, okay? So I've seen it where they've done the survey. We kind of want the person's name so that if we have to come back and say, we're missing a piece of data, we're missing such and such, can you help us? You know, that sort of thing. But some people refuse their names and we just write person 1, person 2, person 3, and we take it as is. And by the way, once the American Community Survey data is ingested, we don't retain those names anymore. That's more about data and statistics and not really about the people themselves. So.
Okay, I think, can you speak, there are people who are interested in seeing how they can connect with the API to get the data, you know, to build those bridges. Can you speak to that, David?
I probably can't speak to it, but I can show where it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're coming up here and you're going to go to explore data and you're looking come down here to the left, it says developers. And when you come here, there will be some information down here. If you're looking for information on API, there's changes, available APIs, you can do that. I think what most people are doing are they're looking for requesting a key, you know, but here it is over here, available APIs, and you can go there. And I guess this is for, I don't know what this is, Slack, you know, I just started doing that the other day, but the information is here. Let's just look at this, available APIs.
There was also a question while David's doing some searching and showing. There was a question about if you could get to a map or a table using the URL, and I think that's a really important point. That if you find the table of your dreams, like David could show you, you could record the number, but you could also just copy and paste that URL and throw it in a doc, and then easily have it to refer back to. That table will still be there if you put in that URL.
Jolie, I think it's the same with the map.
Okay.
I think if they create a map and they create a URL and put it there, it will bring them back to that. And so the beauty of that URL, okay, is if you create your dream blob, okay, we'll say South Brooklyn, and you say, that's what I want. Going forward, I always want data about this area. Maybe it took you all afternoon to put your little geographic blob together. And then you create one table. That's all you have to do. And then take that URL, copy it, and paste it somewhere. You can use that as a shortcut to get back into your area. So you can get, you know, a week from now, you go back in and you say, okay, I no longer need to know about age and sex, but I need to know about maybe commuting patterns. And you use that URL, it brings you to your area, and then you go back to your filters, right? Remember I showed you can go back to your filters and you can kind of change it a little and say, okay, let me take this out, but now I'm going to look for commuting patterns or whatever. But you will always have that URL you initially created. So even if you feel like you're screwing something up, you say, oh, what did I do? You can still go back to that URL that you had pasted somewhere, click on it, and it'll bring you back to what you had and you can start all over. So I do kind of recommend that if you're not like a power user who's doing this all the time, you kind of want to keep your URL handy.
Okay. So I think we've covered most of the questions in the chat. If for some reason we didn't cover your question, please either do me the favor of retyping it right now so I can look on the bottom, because I've been going through, but I'd hate to miss anyone. Or feel free, I'll post our contact information again, so that everyone has it. And you can also go to ask.census.gov for any questions you may have, put them in there, and someone will get back to you. Okay, David, I think I'm putting our contact information in again. So we really hope that you feel more comfortable. I can only say that those data gems that we mentioned in the Census Academy are very worth your time. There's one about searching for a neighborhood. And I've spent time, whereas David has had 24 years of going through this, I've focused more on ACS in the past few months. And just by opening the data gem on one screen and on a phone or whatever, an iPad, and having a laptop or another computer to actually do the walk with your fingers yourself. It is amazing how much you can accomplish and how quickly you will become much more nimble. Finding the right geographies, some things, hitting that select button. One thing I do want to mention to people before you get frustrated like I did is right now we are constantly updating the system. The deselect button, when you go to one of those individual geographies that pops up, the deselect is, for whatever reason, just not functioning right now. So just know you can get out of that. You can go to filter and X out of anything that you don't want to see, but just don't think there's something wrong with your finger, with your mouse when you're trying to deselect. It's just not functioning right this minute, and hopefully it will in our next iteration will work again, but you can select away. So there is definitely a lot to explore. And it's our pleasure to share it with you. So we look forward to future questions. We hope that you will join us for those other 3 census related sessions that are happening this week. We are yours for another 5 minutes. If anyone has any last question, please put it in the chat and we will gladly answer. David, will you throw up the slide for the upcoming webinar sessions?
Yeah, hold on.
Thank you.
I can find that now.
And for the person who recently joined about 2020 census data being published, the apportionment counts, that's just population counts for the states, will be released as of April 30th, 2020, and the redistricting data is coming as of April 30th, 2021, and the redistricting data will be released as of September 30th, 2021. And then there will be subsequent data releases, but that will be a large portion of the data as of September. So these are the 3 sessions coming up. And I do want to thank once again our friends at New York City Open Data Week. It's been a pleasure. Okay, I'll hold for one more minute, yeah. and then we'll say goodbye. Oh, are there surveys being performed for colleges? So as part of the 2020 census, we did do a group quarters count. So I wouldn't say those are performed for colleges, but if you wanted to access data, say for an area serving a particular university, you could access that by looking at either census tracts or local geographies.
What do they mean? Well,
oh, do we focus on data for internet access and cost? Actually, we do focus, David, if you pull up, you want to pull up either the narrative profile or broadband, we do ask about broadband or phone access and what kind of plans people have. I'm not sure we dive into cost, but access is definitely, it's an easy thing to look at through the narrative. It's at the very end of the narrative profile.
Oh, it is? Okay, let me just
take so if we look at New York State, for example.
And how many more minutes we have? We have 10 minutes. Jolie, somebody asked about colleges. I'll show another. Yeah, go ahead.
About colleges. Now the questions are coming in. Someone asked about colleges and internet access and cost. When does the American Housing Survey start? I'll tell you, it starts very soon because I've been spending time confirming people for employment for that survey in my spare time. And so that is definitely coming up. People are being trained, I know, in mid-March. So literally in the week ahead.
Is it way down here at the bottom? Oh, here it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So way down at the bottom, you can see not just types of computers, but you can see types of internet subscriptions, which especially in this era where we have so many people pivoting to either work at home or more like something just as relevant is learning at home. When you look at where people will have access to the broadband they need for online learning, for school children doing remote learning, it's indicative that certain areas are more likely to have broadband access, to people have access in their homes than others.
Yeah. Jolie, I was just going to show you something that has nothing to do with, not very little to do with what we're doing, but somebody asked about colleges, and I do like to show this if I can
Yeah.
get there. Explore data, experimental. I think let me think about this for a minute. Data tools and apps. Actually, I think it's experimental products. So we have some things we're experimenting with, right? And as I go down, let me see if it's still here. Here it is, PSEO. It's about college students and where they actually end up working. So it's PSO Explorer. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So New York, not all states have bought into this, but New York State has. And you can come here to New York State and it will list all the state universities. And you can come down here and you can select, I don't know, I'll take Binghamton University, and you can come down here and it starts to show the outcome of what happens to students. But as you go further on down, let me see if I can do this because it's a little quirky, but you can go to percentage or whatever, but there's something, see, it's selecting what people work in, right? The areas they work in, and you can come down here, but I like percentage and I'm missing something. Oh, flows. Okay, so that's right here at the top. On the left, I click flows and it's showing you what people go into. So this is SUNY Binghamton, but I've only chosen down here, social, whatever. But let's say, for example, my daughter wants to major in foreign languages. I can put that there. And then you start to see what people go into. I mean, here are the students who graduated, and I believe we're looking at 5 years along. So over here it says 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. I can switch it to 10 years, right? And we can see the professions they go into from foreign languages or business, and it comes over here. It's kind of a cool thing. And then you can add over here on the left, you can add geo on there as well. So it doesn't just tell you the industry they go into, it tells you where in the country they go. And so I think that's kind of a neat thing. And I mean, my daughter's getting ready to go into college. And so I have been looking at this to try to figure out, what's going on. But it is here. You can just look it up, Census Bureau, PSEO, Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes Explorer. And you can come here and you can kind of see what's happening with student population. So this is actually one of those things where we don't go door knocking. We actually get the statistics from the universities themselves. And I think they actually pay us to do this, and we start analyzing it a little bit and figuring out where they go and what sectors they're going into. And so it's kind of a cool thing, so some people might want to look at this.
I think it's super cool. And I think it just exemplifies how much there is on census.gov to explore. Like, we took you into the American Community Survey, which has a real wealth of data and a depth in terms of geography, et cetera. But there are so many other tables to explore at census.gov. So we hope you'll be exploring there. David, a couple of other quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
What is the smaller geography the internet data is available at? So that was down. We could go down to zip code.
Yeah.
Do you think we could go down to? I don't know if we could go. I would think you could go. I know you can go down to census tract.
Yeah, census tract or zip code. See, zip code is a little quirky because you might get a zip code that has only 1,000 people living in it, and another one that has 10,000. So you don't really know. But if you go to census tract, that's probably your best bet. But if you're in New York City, a zip code is always probably going to work. But the smallest thing would be census tract. Yeah.
Right, and the census tracts, for those who may be unaware, the census tracts are usually around 4,000 people, but the geography, when you look in a city, the census tracts look really small. But when you go into more rural areas, they expand greatly so that they capture that larger number of population.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are, last question, when you talk about Geo Databases with ACS data.
Okay, so I think we have that, right? If I understand, let me just go here really quick. I think this is what that question is about, right? So here we have geography, and then down here you can, I believe, all right, here it is right here, yeah. Tiger line Geo Databases, they're here. But let's see. So there are still some some Geo Databases here. If I understand that that's what you're looking for, you can come looking for that here. Looks like you can only get it at the state level. I think we used to be a little bit more robust with this, and it looks like lately they're not supporting this as much as they used to. But yeah, I think this, if I understand the question, this is where it is. This is where it's housed. But I believe a couple years ago, they had more variations on this. You could download it, by tract and broken out a little bit better, but now it looks like you have to download the whole nation, maybe by the state level.
Okay, I think we are just about at 4:30, so I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank our friend Liam, who has been with us from the mayor's office. We are appreciative that he has been making sure that our Zoom works. So thank you, Liam. And this presentation has been recorded and will be available. And I will be sending out a PDF of it later today to everyone who registered for the session. So hopefully with some other helpful email information and link to the Census Academy. But we hope that you will go out and find lots of data and explore it. And you may not get to be David Kraiker right away, but I can tell you from personal experience that once you go in, there is just so much to look for and find, and we hope that it will support you with your data needs, and that you will find the accessible data that you're looking for. Otherwise, you can email us for help. Thank you, and we look forward to further participation in New York City Open Data Week.
Thanks, Joli.